Hello, and welcome to today's Coppice Dev stream. For those who may be new, welcome, and for those who are coming back, welcome as well. I'm Martin, and for those of you who do not know me, I am a software developer with over 17 years of experience developing for Apple's platforms. And I run a small software company called M-Cube Software, where I do mostly contract work for other companies. But on the days I don't do contract work, I have my own indie app, Coppice, an app that allows you to put your ideas and thoughts in, link them together, and lay them out visually on an infinitely expanding canvas. And I like to build this app on those days when I'm not contracting, and this stream is my experiment in sharing that process with you all to demystify how software is developed and to show you some of the decision-making process and how you actually go about building this. So today we're continuing building the next version of Coppice, where we're focusing on improvements to image pages. On Saturday on the stream we were actually working on image cropping, and for those of you who may not have seen that stream, we'll switch over to our main screen and we'll take a look at what we got up to. So if I bring up an image here, what we had been working on is having these edit modes over here, and when you switch to crop mode you now have this box appear where you can now actually resize it down. It won't go above a certain height, but you can go to a minimum size, and you can also move crop box around. And this is entirely custom view that we've built, and we've got most of the key components are just the interaction working. So we've got only a few more things to do today. One thing is showing the dimensions as you're resizing, so you can see just how big this is. We want to make this a scroll view because at the moment you cannot make the window smaller than whatever image is displayed. And then we want to actually start storing this and making it so that it actually reflects when you view it back. So that's what we're going to be working on today, or at least that's what I'm going to be working on today. So for anyone who is in chat and following along, let me know what you're working on. Whether you're just watching, whether you're chatting, whether you're working on your own projects, or if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat. But I think what we're going to start with is these dimensions. Hi Sinister, welcome back. I'm not too bad, how are you? Oh cool, what are you modelling at the moment? Oh nice, your animator. What sort of thing are you actually going for that? Have you figured out like what sort of character you want? I don't think I've seen your animator on the Dog Swift stream. And for anyone else who's watching, an animator is effectively just a small character, an animated character for use in streaming. if you haven't seen the DoigSwift stream, you go to twitch.tv/DoigSwift. That's DOIGSWIFT. They have one of the most amazing streams on Twitch, and they've built their animators, and many of the people watching have made an animator, and actually this little robot in the bottom right corner is my pass at an animator. I'm not very good at drawing like creatures, but I am reasonably good at drawing static things like robots. Oh, so you're drawing a little bat. That's cool. Oh, I think, have you actually shown it on the stream before? Because I think I may have seen a bat. Rings a bell of seeing a bat at some point on stream. Yeah, I know Kurzek has a bat, but I think I might have seen another bat as well, so that may have been yours. Well, I mean, if you have an image, feel free to post it in chat, and I'll take a look. But yeah, they're fun to build. It's just taken me a while to to come up with my own. It was the revelation of, oh, let's just do a robot because I can draw those. So I'm not amazing at drawing stuff by hand, but when you give me Photoshop and I'm just doing a bunch of largely vector stuff, I am much more comfortable with what I'm doing. For example, at the moment what I'm doing is I'm going to design what I want this dimensions thing to look like down here at the bottom. So what I'm thinking is probably some sort of hill like that. I'm probably going to make about an 80% opacity. Let's have a look. Oh yes, I have seen this before, because I remember the goggles on it. Are you okay with me showing it on stream? So this is Sinister's little animator. Yeah, I remember seeing that because, like I said, I remember the goggles and the cape, so that's looking really cool. Is this done in Blender then? I love all the details around as well. It's a really nice environment that you've got it in. Yeah, I think it's looking really good. I love the details on the cloak and the little heart nose as well. It's fantastic. Yeah, hopefully you manage to get it looking just how you want it to, because it's already looking fantastic. I think there's been quite a lot of great designs coming out of people on the Dog Swift stream for Animata, so it's quite cool to see what everyone's coming up with and what animals they're picking for their Animata. Alright, so what I'm doing here is just creating a very simple bit of UI down here where we're going to show just what the size is. Because what I'm aiming for is like when you take a screenshot, you can see the size appear here in the bottom right. So I'm aiming for something sort of similar to that, and I think just having a simple pill with the text in that as you drag it will appear at the bottom, I think should work reasonably well for what we want. I mean, we could also put it inside, but the problem is when the crop area gets too small, then it starts becoming a bit of an issue. So I think if we leave it on the outside, then the only issue is make sure we leave enough margin at the bottom. But that is easy enough to do. We can figure that on Saturday. So I think this is probably the simplest and easiest approach. So let's start building this. So we've got our image editor crop view here. And what we basically want to do is when we have a drag state, we're going to draw below the drawing rect. So we'll have it func draw, what are we calling it? Draw dimension panel. We do want to get the drag state, so we want to make sure that we're resizing and not moving. So what we'll do, I'll let drag state equal self.drag state, and we'll check that drag state dot is moving equals false. And then what we need to do is calculate our rectangle. So I think I have a method that will help with this. The size centered in a rect, so we can do that to get it centered in a rectangle and then just shift it down. So if we set our size to width, let's just do 200 by 30 for now. What we'll do is we'll actually get the text that we want to display and calculate the exact size that we want for the text. But for now, we're just going to get it so that we can get the rough position working correctly and make sure everything works out. So we're going to get the panel. the panel rect equal size centered in the drawing rect. And actually we want that to be a var because we're going to change it, because we're going to make the panel rect.origin.y is equal to self.drawing rect.maxy plus drag handle handle depth plus 2. And that needs to be handle depth divided by 2 plus 2. We get our rect, and we're going to do nscolor.blue.set, and then we're going to do panel rect.fill, just to make sure that everything works correctly. And then we'll do self.draw dimensions panel, and this should hopefully draw it in the correct place for us. It may get clipped at the bottom, but we can adjust that. Hi Uli, welcome to the stream. How are you today? Oh no! Well, hopefully the migraines go away and you can fix the sleep deprivation with caffeine or whatever you use to wake yourself up. But yeah, this morning my brain did not want to get going. I got enough sleep, it's just it's been a rather dark, miserable, rainy day here, so yes, a nice cup of tea always helps. Right, so it's always nice when you can find a bug just before you finish. Or usually, as it's always the case that you spend ages looking for the bug, you get to the end of the day and you just decide, I give up, I will look at this tomorrow, and then you get it immediately first thing the next morning. Right, so now that we have this implemented, what we're going to do is add some basic text. Dimensions equal 1000 by 1000 pixel. And we want to get the attributes that we're going to draw with. we're going to set a font, which is going to be font dot system font of size 11 points, and our foreground color is going to be ns color dot white. And then what we need to do is get the size let's call it text bounds, because dimensions and bounds are a bit too similar. Dimensions text as ns string bounding rect with ns size. Drawing option. Don't think we need any options there. Our attributes are going to be there, and the context we don't care about. Now we have the text bounds. I can't remember that. Yeah, that gives us rect. So our size is now text bounds dot size. Centered in the drawing rect. What we'll do is we'll just make sure that's rounded, and this should hopefully work. Yeah, getting your getting the variables mixed up is yeah, I think I was doing that last time on the stream, somehow getting some of the variables the wrong way round. It also doesn't help that even different APIs on the same platform can do it in a different way. Some of them start left and go clockwise, some of them start from the top and go clockwise, some of them do left and right and top and bottom, and it's hard keeping your head straight. You'd have thought we'd have learnt it, but we never do. Right, so it looks like this is flipping slightly. What I'm going to do is set this to this, and treat this as the biggest it's going to be, because I don't see anyone doing more than a 90,000 by 90,000 image, and if they are, they need to rethink why they're using Coppice, because it's going to be rare that you get an image that big that you stick in Photoshop, let alone in Coppice. And if they do that and it clips off the ends, then, well, I'll fix that when it comes to it. But I think for now that should be okay. So what we want to do here is run for our panel rect. We're going to create a rounded rect with our panel rect. We're going to set the radius to size dot height divided by 2, and same for the Y radius. Yeah, of course you'd make a note and report it as a bug, Dave. You always like to help find the bugs in my software, even the ones I intentionally place in there. That's I don't know if Photoshop does have a size limit. Let's see. Okay, so it could do 100,000. Can't do 500,000. Do 250,000. Okay, so it can do 300,000. Can't do 400. Can you do 399,999? No. Okay, so 300,000 by 300,000. So 300,000 times 300,000 is 90 billion. So what's that? Three, four. Oh, that's megabytes, gigabytes. 83 tera? Oh. That's bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes. 83 gigabytes, I think. But yeah, I mean, if it's that big, they have to tile it anyway, because any sort of GPU acceleration, you're limited on how big you can make the image there, and that is going to swap to disk, so. But yeah, I mean, 300,000 by 300,000. Right. So what I want to do probably want to add another 20 points around the size. I think calculator may work beyond int32, but at that point it's showing it in exponentials anyway. So let's have a look here. I want to go in here. I want to resize these offsets here. Let's make these 40 and see what this looks like. The LED background changes. No, I'm assuming this is on the old version of calculator. Unless he is right. That would explain it then. Right, so let's take a... actually, before we build and run, we need to tweak here. Well, it's all black, but now it changes to reflect whatever is behind it. So It's still changing colour, it's just intentional this time. Okay, so let's see. That going to clip? No! So I think that is good enough. Right, so let's start doing some drawing. So we're going to go into our crop view, and the first thing we're going to do is update the colour to be white 0 with alpha 0.8. And then I think what we need to do let panel size equal text bounds dot size dot rounded dot text bounds size dot rounded and what we're going to add is we're going to have a text margin. Actually, text. Now let's vertical margin equal, say 2, and let horizontal margin What we actually want is just the width, because we want a fixed height really, because otherwise, depending on what the numbers and letters are, the height may change and that may cause it to wobble a bit. So what we're going to set the height to is Photoshop. Okay, let's say 14 points. So our panel size can be CG size width. It's going to be the text bounds dot width dot rounded, and the height is going to be round up for that. I'm going to set the height to 14. Then what we want to do is we draw our panel rect. I want to use our panel size here. Then our dimensions text as in a string, I'm going to draw it. And our rect is going to be panel size dot height. Actually, we can get the height using our centered in thing again. Text rect is going to be text bounds rounded dot size dot centered in panel rect. Then we just do our dimensions text dot as in a string, and we're drawing it in the text rect with our attributes. That should hopefully draw for us. Okay, so that's drawing, but we definitely need more width. So, we haven't added it there. So what we're going to do is let's add 14 as well, because that should give us 7 points either side, which should hopefully put us outside the rounded bit. But we will see. Right. A bit too much. Let's reduce it to 10. See what this looks like. I think that's looking a lot better. One thing we do need to do is there should be a bold system font. And what we want to do is self.croprect.width, self.croprect.height. Convert that as well. This should hopefully dynamically resize for us. Okay, so that's cropping it down. Oh, text bounds dot rounded up. We could do it rounding up there as well. Always want it to be slightly bigger so that it doesn't actually crop any of the text. I think that looks pretty good. So we can go all the way down to 32, go all the way up to the image size. So let's say I wanted to make this 320 by 240. Okay, I think that looks fairly good to me. So I think we can mark that off the list. We'll commit that. Version control. Coppice 59. Added. Added dimensions to display when resizing crop right. Okay, so our next thing is scrolling. This is going to be fun. So this is going to involve quite a lot of stuff. Firstly, we need to get the scroll view in, and then all of the stuff that we have been building, so moving around, resizing and everything, that all has to work in the scroll view. Now, to give you an example here, if I have this page and I start dragging, you can see that it starts scrolling, and the more, like the further away you are, the further it scrolls. Same goes for resizing. You can resize up, you can resize down. So we basically need to make everything work with the scroll view. The benefit of what we have here on the canvas view is the fact that I've already implemented all this, and so we have a reference. It's always far harder doing this the first time because your only reference is Stack Overflow. What few blog posts remain are the documentation, but the documentation can be very hit and miss, especially when it comes to the Mac. So we'll take a look at how this works in the canvas view so I can show you what we're going to be implementing, because I've forgotten how exactly this works. I just know it does. And that was me banging my watch against the table. So what we want to do is go into, I believe, Canvas Editor View Controller. Maybe I don't have it in. No, it's in the canvas view. Right, so we have start on auto scrolling. Right, so you have your mouse dragged, and we start auto scrolling with the event. So first we say stop auto scrolling. We get our content view in the previous, and yeah, so do self auto scroll with event, and that is just on NS view. So then we auto scroll, we get the delta of how much it scrolled, and then we shoot off a dragged event to the layout engine, and the layout engine is what actually does it. So we send off our initial event, and then if it starts auto-scrolling, then what we do is every 10 milliseconds we're firing off this same thing again with the event, but the auto scroll should have shifted it. So what we do is find out how much we shift it, and then just like shift it along and make sure the event happens, so that as the view shifts along, what we have dragged along also shifts. So, I mean, what I can do is if I comment this out and build and run, you can see what will happen. We will actually scroll, but the actual page will not scroll with it. So if we go on now, and I go like this, you can see it's very... If I leave the mouse cursor still, it doesn't actually do anything. It's only when the mouse cursor moves that it will actually jump, because when it moves, we're getting the mouse dragged. So what this does is it ensures that every time we do an auto scroll, we're telling the layout engine, hey, you need to update this, so that it can actually update the position of the size, and it treats it as though it's just dragged it anywhere else. So it moves along with the scroll view. So, well, I think before we actually get to doing all that, what we want to do is just get scrolling working. And get all of this working without needing the auto scrolling. So what we need to do I think what I'll first do is get a large image, which I'll just take a screenshot of my desktop. That should be a big enough image that I can go into Coppice, I can create a new image page and drag this in. So yeah, so this is the issue of this is now full size, because we don't want to scale it down for cropping, but we do, and we're fine with it when you're viewing it. So we're going to stick this in the scroll view, so all of this doesn't happen. So what we could do, just embed all that in a custom view, and then embed in a scroll view. See if that has, okay. A scroll view, do it -1 so we don't get the border. Right, how have I done this in the canvas view? Get rid. I know there is a way. Okay, so we just have canvas view. Okay. I don't know. Get rid of those. I would assume it should work. I mean, one thing that we want to do is add equal widths. That's what we actually want to do. That should be 1, and it should be greater than or equal to the scroll view. Width. Why is that complaining? They'll just need next position. Same equal height. The heights, that should be 1. Be greater than or equal to that. Document. Okay. Talk about no, document. Let's just build and run and see what happens. See if they are actually things. Because NS scroll view is a bit weird, so it may just be interface builder that is not dealing with the weirdness. So we switch to crop. Yeah, that all seems to be okay. Crop. Yeah, that's all okay. Now we do need to flip the view. No, that's not wrong. Flip to clip. There we go. So if you just flip the clip view, everything is working from the top. One thing I have noticed, we're probably going to... I only tweak the top and the left and right margins. I'm probably going to tweak the top margin as well, because it looks a bit odd just being 20 points at the top and 40 points at the side. So what we're going to do is go in here, select our image view, the top constraint, and change that to 40. And go over here and change this to 40. In fact, while we're at it, we might as well make it 40 all the way around. Just so that when you scroll to the bottom, you have the same margin all the way around. So that is all looking good. Goes crop mode. So we can size that down, size that down. Go over here. scroll all the way over. That scales up and down correctly. But it does not auto scroll. So that's the next thing. Now this is where things get interesting, because for the canvas view, when we actually do the scrolling, we're calling self-to-auto scroll. Now the canvas view is the document view of our scroll view. So you have your NS scroll view that has a clip view, which is basically what part is actually visible, and the document view is what is actually in the scroll view. It's kind of very different to how iOS works, at least from the public API side of things. So if we want to do auto scrolling, the question is, do I need to call that on the document view? Because the actual interaction is happening on this cropped view. I mean, I guess there's only one way to find out. So we set up auto scroll section. Add right, so on mouse up on stop auto scrolling, but on mouse dragged start auto scrolling with event. Yeah, I'd assume it would look for it, but I mean, I've never actually tried it, but we'll see. Get rid of that. Start auto scrolling. So we'll see whether the auto scrolling actually works. And if it does, then we can get it adjusting things. Okay, that's going very quickly. And maybe let's reduce this to 0.1. That's a bit more like it. So the auto-scrolling works. All we need to do is update the crop rect. So what we want to have happen if we get the position before we auto scroll, get the position after, we can get the delta. Outlet, drag state, self.drag state. Oh yeah, we need to get the content view, don't we? Content view. So the previous position equals content view dot bounds dot origin, and the delta that we've been looking for is the content view bounds dot origin minus previous position. So hopefully that just works. We can but hope. Okay, that doesn't work. Oh, delta is the overall delta. So it's using the same event. I wonder. Okay, so let's do this from we're going to stick this into a private function. Just crop rect for dragged point. Drag. Do this, and dragged point is pointing view. We get our delta, I'm going to do delta point equals soft.convert event.location in window from nil plus delta soft.adjust crop rect to drag point point. Better rename that again to point. See if this works now. The thing I was actually falling foul of was the fact that the delta is not the delta between events. The delta that I'm using is the delta between when you do mouse down and what the current event point is. Because I found that the mouse tracking is a lot better if you say whatever the current point is minus the initial state, and then you basically keep going from the initial state to the new state rather than doing it between each drag state, just updating it that way, because it starts to drift if you do it between drag states, because it isn't entirely accurate, especially if you are rounding things down to get nice pixel perfect dragging, but the mouse cursor deltas are floating point numbers, so it actually works a lot better just doing it where you store the initial frame and the initial click point, and you just say what's the delta between that, and then apply that to the frame. So we'll see what happens here, because the thing is, if I was using the delta as I was before, I'm basically setting the delta to effectively like 1 or 0, which puts it over here. So that seems to be working. So it seems to flicker when I'm going down, but not. Okay, so that's working. That's working. These are all working. The problem is it's a bit still auto scrolling. Oh, because I need to tell it to stop auto scrolling here, I believe. May not be that, but we will see. Yeah, it was that. But that is not as smooth. Let's try 0.05. See how that looks. That looks a lot smoother. Yeah, I'm not using the timer, I'm using like perform selector, but it's one of those things of it just ensures that it stops when you drag, because when you drag it starts the timer again. So it's just one of those things that just helps ensure we pause the auto scrolling. But yeah, that me is looking pretty good. So down, just make sure this works. Yep, that works. So that was a lot easier than I thought. So yeah, we have cropping, we have it in a scroll view. Everything seems to be working very well. The only problem is, if you switch here, we're not cropping, and when you go back, we're back to the full thing. So that is what we're going to do next, is actually work out how are we going to store this, how are we going to display it, how are we going to go back to it, and once we've done all that, we then need to make sure how does all of this work on the canvas view, because that is going to be an entirely different thing. We're going to have to implement some new stuff that allows you to temporarily resize a page on the canvas in edit mode and have it resize back afterwards. So everything we've done so far is only the first bits of this. So, in terms of how we're going to store this, what we need is image page content here. So, we store all this information in our properties, and then stuff like our description gets stored as metadata. So, these page content, how the actual data model works is you have a page, and the page contains all the generic metadata like the title, containing folders and stuff, but it has this page content. Now when we save this, the page content is saved as one of these model files. And the model file contains the type of the file, the file name, the data and the metadata. Now, when these are actually saved, the type, I believe the file name and the metadata are all saved inside of the actual page content. In fact, if I bring up our document here, we have a plist here that stores all of our information, and if I find pages here, file name and text, and mostly don't have metadata, but I mean if we found one that is an image, it probably will show some metadata at some point if I have added it. Okay, I guess not. But the content, we just store the file name and text because the actual data is stored as a separate file in here. This is all done basically to make stuff as easy as possible to manage across multiple platforms, to ensure the data isn't entirely locked away, because this is all effectively an XML file which you can pull the metadata out, but all the actual page content are stored as the real files. It also means that I don't necessarily have to load all of this fully into memory if I don't want to. I believe I do at the moment, but it allows me to lazily load in future. So what we want to do is actually store this as metadata on the page content, because this crop stuff is only really going to the actual data. Well, I use the file name because the file name is copied into the document package. So you cannot just reference something outside, because effectively when you add the file, it becomes part of the document. So everything is just neatly bundled up in the one package. So I just need the file name, because the file name is just it's basically just a UUID with the file extension appended to it when it's actually added in. Alright, so we've got our page content here. So let's add a new metadata key, which is going to be the crop rect. So this metadata is where we're going to store all of this additional information. So our crop rect is going to go in there, and then all of our hotspots are going to end up going in there as well. We want metadata. Do that. For the image description could be nil. Our crop rect is going to be a CG rect, and what we're going to do is metadata crop rect dot raw value equal stuff dot. Well, that's a fair point. We actually need to string from rect. Need to make sure we're storing that as a string. It can correctly be saved to disk. And then what we need to do here, if let crop rect equals metadata keys dot crop rect dot raw value as string. Let crop rect string equal that. Let crop rect equals ns rect string crop rect string, then self.crop rect equals crop rect, else self.crop_rect equals cg point cg rect origin dot 0 image dot self dot image. Oh, can the image be nil? Self dot image dot size else self dot crop_rect dot 0. Yes, I have been muted for that entire explanation. Hey, I'm still getting used to muting myself on the Stream Deck. So, what I was saying is that Coppice Pro, effectively, you can use Coppice for free, you can download it for free, use it just fine, but there is a Pro version here that is $20 a year. And what this gives you is the free version. You have, you can only have one canvas per document. In the Pro version, you can have as many as you like. In the free version, this is just a flat list, but in the Pro version, you can group things into folders. You also get the ability to do additional customizations, such as changing whether you want this to be in light mode or dark mode, or to always have page titles visible rather than them only appearing on hover. And then finally you get automatic linking, which is one of the first tools that helps make Coppice smarter that I'm wanting to introduce, where as you type it automatically finds the page links. So if you don't need any of this, you can just use Coppice free forever. All you have to deal with is the fact that you don't get those features, and you've got these ads for Coppice Pro that show all these Pro symbols and this thing up here. And effectively it works almost like ad supported, except in this case the ad is just an ad for the Pro version. So the way I view it is I want to get Coppice into as many hands as possible, because if someone's using Coppice, they may find, oh, this is useful, but not useful enough to pay for. But over time, things will get more useful, and they'll see more Pro stuff appearing, and at some point they will view, oh, actually, at this point I do want to try it. But if it's just a paid upfront app with no free version, they never see that stuff. And if it's a completely separate Lite and Pro app where they don't see all these extra features, it's not there. So it's effectively, the free version is almost treated as a marketing tool to get people to upgrade to Pro. So this is all, I mean, I think it works reasonably well. The big issue is that at the moment, if you want to try the Pro features, you need to buy Pro. So you can try Coppice and see if you like Coppice and read about the Pro features, but you can't see, do I genuinely want them? So what hopefully I can do in the future is, because you can sign up for an account without actually buying Pro, I'm going to say, well, you can sign up for an account and activate a free 30-day trial or something like that, where you can just use Pro features in that 30 days, and when it ends, it ends. It's not going to be one of those where it's like, oh, you did the free trial and you forget to stop it from renewing and it automatically charges you. It's going to be a straight 30-day trial. At the end of it, it just ends, and then there'll be a prompt, do you want to actually pay for Pro? Like, I'm very happy with going down the road of subscription payments for Coppice, but I don't want to go down the scammy road of subscription payments where you get people paying simply because they've forgotten, or you try to con people into doing it with a free trial, or you have ridiculous costs by saying it's only $20 per week. It's just $20 per year, and if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you can cancel it later. And yeah, so it's working pretty well, but we'll see how it works long term. I mean, the other reason that I wanted to do the subscription is it makes it a lot easier to, in future, do, for example, an iPad version, where, oh, you've already got Pro, just log in on the iPad and you get it for free. So it's like you're paying for Pro. You're not paying for Pro for Mac and Pro for iPad. You just pay for Pro and you get it. It also helps with the fact that Coppice is outside the App Store, but if someone goes to the App Store, they could start downloading from the App Store if I put it in there at some point in the future, and they just log in, they don't have to repurchase it. Or if they purchase it on the App Store and then decide, actually I want to download outside the App Store, you can again just log in and it will work. So yeah, Adobe is very clingy with their subscriptions. I mean, they weren't too bad with me when I downgraded from Creative Cloud, like full Creative Cloud, to just Photoshop, but they actually made that really easy and gave me a refund of some of the stuff that I'd paid. But yeah, they're very clingy if you want to actually fully leave. So let's have a look. Got the crop rect. That is all stored in there. Before I forget, page content test. Let's write some unit tests for all these bits. Got the crop rect. Oh, that doesn't sound particularly good. Not so Adobe would think you weren't actually registered and then prevent you from saving. That's thankfully I haven't encountered anything like that in all the time I've used it. But I mean, I was paying for Creative Cloud, but realised I was only really using Photoshop and a little bit of Illustrator, and there were a few other things, like I'm using all the fonts and everything. But I realised, well, I'm not using most of this stuff. I could get by with buying Affinity Designer for the vector stuff that I do very rarely, using and just getting Photoshop. Because if you just get Photoshop, it is really, I think it's only £10 a month just for Photoshop, but you get access to all the font stuff that I use on my websites and stuff like that. So basically 90% of what I was using I could get for a fifth of the price I was paying for Creative Cloud. So I decided to go that route and pay £120 a year rather than £600 a year for 90% of what I was using. Oh, so you haven't really been using it since Photoshop 7? I think they started adding a lot of the online stuff with Creative Suite, so that could make sense. Right, so we have these in here. So this here, right. What? 5. Get the image data, but we're going to do crop that here. I tried Pixelmator when it first came out, but it never really clicked with me. Like, I've tried a few different image editors, but the problem is Photoshop just clicks with me. And I think that's because I've been using it since like Photoshop 4 or 5. One of them. And I used it all the way through school and university, and it's what I'm used to. I mean, I know that like for UI design there are other tools out there like Adobe XD or Sketch or stuff like that that people use for designing UIs. I still use Photoshop because again it's just what I'm used to. It's what I am comfortable with, what I'm fastest with, so right, so I'm going to correct right here, and that's going to be equal to build and run this. Hopefully that should all work. Yeah, don't go quite that far back with Photoshop. I mean, my dad probably does because he's worked with Mac since I was born. So he was starting, for example, on what would it have been? Illustrator 1.0. So that's how far he goes back. So we've got an error. Image page content has no member crop rect. Oh. Ah. Okay, so you can't have an invalid one. Oh, that's... Well, I mean, you shouldn't be able to have a 0 crop rect, actually. So, if we do... crop rect equals this, if crop rect is not 0, then we do that. Then we do that, that. This complicates things. It would be so much easier if we turned an optional. because if this fails, we want to go to this. Okay, let's do this. So we will get the crop rect and set it to there. Now if it's an invalid thing, it sets it to 0. So if it's equal to 0 at this point, which it can be, now it could have been saved as 0, but technically it should never be 0. Then we're going to get it from the image, if the images happen to be there. The other thing that we're going to do is when the image gets set, we're going to reset the crop rect. To make sure all these are saved. Yeah, Affinity Designer, I have mixed feelings about it. Some things are fantastic and some bits are weird. Like, it doesn't really, it feels like it's missing some basic functionality while simultaneously having some very advanced functionality elsewhere. And it's one of those things of, I was struggling to work out how you do this thing that was very basic to do in Illustrator, but then finding that I could do something that was really complex to do in Illustrator really easily in Affinity Designer. So it's, I think that's just the standard growing pains. Correct. 0. Now we can use there. Hopefully. Why are you complaining? No. I've not crop racking. Oh, that's a fair point. Now we can shove that down there. Then that should fully initialize it, but also make sure that if it's set to 0, we try to get it from the image. Oh, and we have another error here. Oh. Argument. Try again. I only did one. Want to do the whole test suite. Okay, so they all pass. So what we're probably going to do is we need to make sure it gets saved as well. So I'll just add a crop rect. Content crop rect equal. And then 20, 40, 66, 88. Crop rect there. Build and run again. This one should hopefully, oh, for crying out loud, because that needs to be as string. Cars, Swift and types. That should go through, that should test, and that passes. Okay, well, as we're roughly about halfway through the stream, I am going to go and take a 5-minute break because I need to get another drink. And when we come back, we'll do a tweak up here, making sure that the crop rect gets set here, and that should be the data model fully done. And so we can start saving this stuff. When you switch back out of the mode, we'll save the crop rect on here, and when you switch back in, we'll restore it, and hopefully that should make the crop mode work, and then we have to work to make the actual all the view modes work. But we will get onto that in a few minutes once I get back from a quick break. So be right back. Okay, I am back and I have more fluids. Stay hydrated. So let's get back into developing Coppice. So before the break we were getting the crop rect implemented. What we want to do here is when we update the image, if image not equal to old value, want self.croprect come want to be when the image is at origin is 0 and the size is set. So what that means is we will reset the crop size. So what we actually want here is test.image, and this is just a single test image crop rect set to image size changes image. We need to get our image here. Get our content. Our crop rect. And then we will content.image image. Actually, CG rect origin.0.size. Now, what I want to do is swap that around. So we set the image before we set the crop rect, then we're going to set the image again, and now we want it to be equal to 180 40. If we build and run these should hopefully pass, and then all of our data model work is done. Never use image data. So they both pass. So commit some stuff. So that is all in and implemented, and one good thing is this should all be fully backwards compatible. Yeah, it should all be backwards compatible. Because we're storing everything as a dictionary, these other metadata things, basically it will load everything in and crop rect will be stored in other metadata. So the current version of Coppice will read it in, keep track of it, and save it back to disk. It just won't use it, it won't see it. It could potentially get out of date if you change the image, it won't actually wipe that out. But I don't think that should be too big of an issue, because we should really be handling invalid crop rects when you go into crop mode. So it should all work fine, but obviously I will be testing this every time I release a new version and I change things. I always go and make changes to various things to see if I can break switching between versions. I want to keep it where you don't have to always be on the latest version as much as possible. And in fact, I've already had one update to the document versioning system to add this ability in. So this ability is sort of a trying to improve backwards compatibility with documents as I add new data, because I forgot to add this into the first version. So I believe it was 2021.1 that I added this in, and yeah. So the initial release of Coppice, you cannot create something in any of the later versions and open it in the initial release of Coppice, because I was smart enough to put the versioning in, just not this stuff to help me reduce how often I need to do versioning. So it's had one version change where it blocks opening newer files, but this change hopefully means that with this release you can open it back to like the previous two versions and it should just work and you shouldn't get any data loss. So now we have all of our data model stuff working. Let's see if we can save to that data model. We've got our crop view here, but what we actually want, the image editor view model. What we want, self dot crop rect, dollar crop rect. Oh, that's a fair point. Don't want to use combined. Because we use combine for this, when we set the crop rect and view did appear, it will cause issues. I suppose what we can do did disappear. Got view. Yeah, we can do subscribers. Crop rect. Now I can set this all up here. Actually, what we want to do is dot sign to crop rect on self.view model. Subscribers.crop rect equals that. So whenever the crop rect updates, that should update the view model. And when we first get this, we should update there. So hopefully with these few lines of code, everything should work. Yeah, I mean, the challenge of coming up with a decent format is difficult. I've heard on the side of allowing invalid data in those cases to creep in, because it's my responsibility to handle invalid data. Like if you go back to a newer version and there's new data there, it should just hold on to it but not do anything with it, and then actually write that back to disk just as it was beforehand. If it all gets deleted, then fine, it's they've deleted like the containing record. But I err on that side because I'd rather get rid of the risk of data loss there. But what I want to do in terms of like, oh, if that data's there and that data depends on something else, like the crop rect depending on the image, if the image changes, the crop rect may be invalid. I should be handling an invalid crop rect anyway. So I'd rather err on the side of not deleting the data, like avoiding data loss at all costs, even if that means potentially invalid data, because that means that I can handle that invalid data, but I can't handle data loss. So, hi Steve, welcome to the stream. Glad you could finally make it live, rather than just catching the VOD just as I finished streaming. Glad you've been enjoying the VODs. I've actually, at the pressing yesterday of Dave Voer, I've created a YouTube channel for Coppice, so I'm going to start uploading the VODs there. I was going to hold off for a bit, but what I'm probably going to do is start uploading them, just playing around, probably not making it public just yet. I mean, it does help that I've realised that you can actually, there's an export function on Twitch where you can just do export, and it will, rather than you having to download and then upload to YouTube, it will export it directly to YouTube. Because the slight problem is I didn't realise I had to verify my account before I could upload anything longer than 15 minutes. And obviously all of my videos are 2 to 3 hours. So I'm probably going to have a play around with that and see if I want to add things such as timestamps and title cards and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not actually recording locally, I'm just streaming it. I never know whether like recording locally while also streaming will cause issues for the stream or issues for the recording. So I haven't actually got into that yet. I may play around with it at some point and see if OBS actually lets me do both at the same time with no issues. I mean, I'd hope that it's smart enough to do the encoding once and just write it to the network and the disk, but we'll see. I mean, I think what I want to do is have it locally and be able to clip things, because for example I start the stream and it's playing for 10 minutes before the stream actually starts, so I may want to trim things down. I may want to add, like, cut down the be right back sections, so basically do some basic editing on the streams before uploading to YouTube. Bits like earlier where I was muted, I may want to get rid of stuff like that, but not make them massively different, but just like trim down some of the bits that are easy enough to trim down, where I could spend like 5-10 minutes just cutting stuff down, re-export it and then upload it. But I'm still learning all this stuff, so we'll figure out how things actually work. But I think a lot of people are watching the VODs, so I feel like having them on YouTube will help a lot there, even if they can't make it live. So we'll see how things go. I mean, this is all an experiment. Yeah, I've seen with Screen Capture Kit, I have seen that Apple, I think, put a commit in for a new display capture type, a display capture source in OBS. So they've actually committed like using Screen Capture Kit. They can't update the current one because that needs to work as far back as OBS runs. So this is a new type that they're adding with additional functionality and everything. But yeah, I'll be interested to try that out when I finally upgrade to macOS 12. I was meant to do that this weekend, but I forgot. So it's going to have to happen this next weekend. But thankfully I now have a temporary backup machine, so if things do go wrong, I'm not completely screwed for my contract work. I've just been very, very wary after my last attempt to update the OS on my iMac has led to it breaking, and stuff is still broken even after I've done a full fresh reinstall and restore. So yeah, I'm very wary of OS upgrades at the moment. Very, very wary. As a pro tip to anyone watching, do not think, oh, I am moving house. Before I pack my computer away the day before moving house, I will just update to the latest OS version. Because when you do that, it will be the first time in like nearly 30 years of you using Macs that an OS update will fail. And therefore you will be moving house, not knowing whether your computer is completely broken. So yes, avoid that fun. So, oh yes, what I was doing was testing to see whether the cropping saves. So if we crop down to cover just this area here, then we switch to here, we switch back, it's saved. Now, what it has not done is done this here. So it's not going into undo. It is not actually, like if we close the document and reopen, it won't actually save it. So yes, that hasn't saved. So what we could do here, and this is one of the cool things of my entire system here, the reason it hasn't saved is I forgot to put the did set on. If I do did set and guard self.cropRect is not equal to the old value, where's return, and then I do this self.did change cropRect old value. So what we have here is, this is something I've built on this. We have page content here that calls this did change, which calls back up to the actual page, because these page contents, all this metadata is actually stored on the page. But you get similar things here with page, where auto linking, we have all these did changes, and what these effectively do is they send out notifications. I have various observers set up that allow for observing for different property changes, but it also registers the undo actions. So this basically sets everything up so that as long as I just add this did change in, it does a full undo for me. Oh, they're not equal to symbol. Yes, this here. You'll also notice when I have, if I do a function, what do I have a function? Function with return type. Here, I have arrows. If I do equals equals, it looks like this. You can do tilde equals, do greater than or equal to. And this is all ligatures because this is the JetBrains mono font, and it has all these ligatures in. So if I just type exclamation point that, it just converts it all over. And some people don't like that because this is technically two separate characters, so you can see that it's moving the cursor in between, and it goes like that. But yeah, oh no, this is a font. This will work in any editor that you use. Xcode, TextMate, Sublime, VS Code. You can set it up in Terminal. You could, I mean, should file new. If I have text edit, I copy and paste this, you'll see that it pastes it like that. But if I, can you change the font to where are we? JetBrains Mono. Yeah, it just works in text edit there. So yeah, JetBrains Mono is a fantastic font. I believe it is based on. I don't think it's too different for Deja Vu Sans, because previously I was using Deja Vu Sans Mono, which is what Apple's Menlo font is based off, but I actually prefer some bits of Deja Vu over Menlo. But yeah. Oh, I don't think it. I'm not sure if the JetBrains Mono font is the default for their IDEs. It might be. I don't use their IDEs, but it's just a free font that they release, and it's. I bring it up. Mono. So it's just free open source font. It looks really nice in all sorts of different languages, and they've done a lot of design work to basically try and get everything optimal for actually designing, for actually coding. So this is like comparing Consolus, and to me, like, JetBrains model just looks a lot clearer. So they've done quite a bit of stuff. It all looks really good. And like I say, you've got all these ligatures here that it switches between. And it also, as you can see here, uses ligatures to balance. For example, if you've got the double question marks that you use in Swift, turns it on, it actually pushes them together to make them appear more like an operator rather than something else. So honestly, I really like the font, so it's well worth doing. Oh, distractions are fine. Distractions are fine because part of what I want to do with this stream is interact with the chat, show stuff off, answer questions and stuff like that, and talking about all this stuff is like a lot of fun for me. So it's better being distracted by stuff where I can explain stuff to people rather than me just going on Twitter and doom scrolling. So I may still be getting occasionally distracted, but it's a far better form of distraction, a far healthier form of distraction. But yeah, now that I have this crop rect in, because this did change in, because this is all hooked up to all of these various bits and pieces in my content system, it should hopefully now actually hook into the undo system and save things. Now, what it's not going to do is actually reflect the undo, so you switch away and back again. But like if I do that and do undo, it's not actually undoing it. But actually, but it's saving it, because if I then go and reload that, yeah, so that's now been saved. But if I go there, it's saying there's an undo to do, but it's not actually undoing it. Ah, I wonder. What happens if I do that? Up there. Oh no, it's doing it there. Though that could be because it's NS text view doing that. I mean, we're registering undo action, which is set content value, the key path of page with ID. So we're getting the page, which should actually need to fix that. So the set content value the redo action automatically happens as part of the undo action, because what it will do, if I find if I go to the change, I don't want it on page content, I want it on model object. Oh, that's a fair point. It isn't actually going to do that on here. Yeah, because here they're balanced out. Oh no, wait, set value. No, they're not, so fine, because we do object that. I mean, redo does work. Because I have the register insert there, register insert there, so changes do work. Oh yes, yeah, so this is how it works. This is how the redo happens. So you go in here, inside here, and yeah, NSUndo automatically does that. I was thinking that how does it actually get the undo, but we call set value, and set value is basically just setting things using the key path. So it will set the key path, that will update the property on the model object, which will then call back into did change, and then it will register an undo action again. But because we're already in undo, this gets registered as a redo action by NSUndo Manager. Which is why it is confusing to me that it's not working here. So let's build and run and see where the undo isn't happening. It should just automatically happen. Once I had the did change, I'm notifying it all that the undo is happening. So when I go into crop, like, it shouldn't update this view because this isn't, like, I'm setting this when it appears, but when you switch away, I switch back. So that is the point I'm setting it. But if I undo, right, so we go in, and we should have our old value, which we do. So if we go into here, get our page, we get our content. So if I do content key path, what is the current value of this? Oh, because we're changing it so often. Right. Yeah. Yeah, so we don't want to update the data model every time the crop rec changes. We want to update, yeah, so we're not going to, yeah, I know what's gone wrong. I could use an undo group. But the thing is, an undo group doesn't coalesce multiple things for the same property. Like, it doesn't have a way to see, oh, actually, I'm undoing this many times. Because what it's basically doing is every point you move across, it's registering an undo for it. What we really want to do is only register that undo when you actually change it. And the thing is, as there isn't really an inspector at the moment, we don't need to update the data model every single time. We only need to update it once the move has finished. So what we can do is in the crop view, we'll just add a delegate. Added date. Added finish changing. View. And self if if drag state beforehand. If self.dragState dot initial crop rect is not equal to self.crop rect, then self dot we need to actually add to the delegate. So we'll add the delegate in here. Ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da. What's that complaining about? Oh, we never used the drag state there. Okay. Want to make sure that the drag state is not equal to nil. So we'll that out, but where was I? Here. Delegate dot did finish updating that in self. And we'll remove publish there. Go here. Self.crop-rect. Delegate equals self. Don't need that. Don't need that or that now. Delegate. Self.viewModel.crop-rect equals self. Correct. And while we're here, what we might as well do go to image page content. We'll make this Objective-C dynamic. The reason I use Objective-C dynamic rather than combine here is because key value observing is a lot better than combine or anything else that Swift has when you want to have a change that is based like observe a property on one object, but that property depends on another object, and literally it is so much less code to do that with KVO because KVO was built for change A changes property B, which changes property C, which changes property D, and you're just observing property D. So that is why I've been using Objective-C dynamic, because then I can observe this with KVO, and what I could do, for example, in the image editor view model is stuff like this. So if it's key path, crop-rect, do crop-rect, and then I can do Objective-C dynamic for crop-rect, and what that basically means is that if either image content changes, which technically can't because it's constant, or image content.crop-rect changes, then any observers of self.crop-rect will be notified. So that is why I go down that route, and what that means is that all that subscribe stuff I just deleted I need to put back in. Crop-rect, because what I actually want to do is self.viewModel that publisher for CropRect. So we can use Combine to actually hook it all up, but we want to use KVO to actually publish the observations. It also means that I can use Cocoa bindings for a lot of this stuff as well. So you notice that I don't actually set the image anywhere in here. That is just bound in the nib. But I can then do assign to CropRect on self.cropView. And if we store this in subscribers under CropRect, means that whenever the CropRect changes on the view model, we'll update it on CropView. Well, then view did disappear. Yes, it's getting it when it happens. I mean, the same would have happened with KVO. The problem is that I was doing a publisher on the CropRect. Now the CropRect is updating on the actual crop view in real time. As you drag it, it constantly updates that property. Instead, we've now got a delegate that will fire a mouse up, and that's the point that we update the view model and update the actual data model, and that will then set up the undo. I essentially do the same thing in the canvas editor, so it works a similar way there. I mean, this is why it can be good to separate out view model and data model, because it allows you to do certain things like that. So I could have done that in the view model, but this just makes it a bit easier. In the view model, what I could have done is, rather than having it be a wrapper around, because at the moment CropRect is literally just reading and writing to here, it's not storing anything. If it was storing something, then I could like store it and then do like either a perform selector after delay, a dispatch async with a dispatch work item to basically reduce that so that it only sets it once. So it keeps getting it, and like a set needs display or a set needs layout changes, it keeps happening until the next run loop happens, at which point it actually saves it. But that starts making other things a bit more complicated, so it's a bit easier just doing it this way, because the only downside to this is that as you drag, if I did have an inspector, the numbers in the inspector would not update as you drag. But the thing is, if you're dragging it, then you can't actually go and change those values anyway, so it doesn't matter. Especially given that I'm showing the values underneath the crop area now, and B, I don't have an inspector. So why make things more difficult for a potential future thing? But what we're going to do on here is self.subscribers CropRect. I'm going to explicitly cancel it and then null it out, because KVO can sometimes be a bit iffy with Combine, so I always like to cancel things. I've had some issues, so but hopefully this should all work and now fully work with undo and redo. So we have this here. If I move that along, so that should be 1. Move it down, that should be 2. There we go. Undo, redo. And all it took was a few lines of code, and then the many more lines of code I wrote many months ago. Yeah, we're not having it crop here yet, but it's all been saved, it's all working in undo, redo, and the thing is, if I do undo here in view mode, this all works like this. So that all works. I could add a CA animation, but the problem is that all of this is just drawn as NS Bezier paths, so it would have to morph between one image to the next. They aren't all separate layers or anything. So plus, honestly, most animation I avoid it unless it's really helpful and necessary. I mean, stuff like showing and hiding the inspectors and side. I have no idea why it keeps doing that sometimes. Sometimes it loses the inspector thing when you are on the canvas, but it shouldn't do because it has the correct things. But yeah, what I was meaning was I don't animate resizing, like hiding things in the split view. Mostly because when I tried it, it completely messed up and like it would not respect the user's size that they'd selected. It would start changing things, and then all of a sudden it would snap, and everything would completely mess up the layout. And I just got to the point where it's, do I really need to do this? And then I looked and realized that I think Xcode does it, and I think Apple's apps do it, but I think most third-party developers have got to the point that I have, where most third-party apps do not animate the split view. Yeah, animation's a lot more important on iOS, but also iOS was built from the ground up for animations, whereas the Mac has had it sort of added on. But it's just one of those things of looking at third-party Mac apps. Most of them don't bother with the animation for split views, and it's one of those things of I'm not going to bother with it. It causes problems. I could not figure out why it was causing problems. It just was. So I just disabled the animation. It's one of those many things that you've got to choose your battles, and I would rather fix other bugs than constantly hunt down a bug just for something that looks nice but doesn't really make a massive difference. Like the time I spent just disabling the animation for this allowed me to do an animation so that when you click on, it bounces the page up, which is far more useful to the user than animating these closed on the rare times that they show and hide the inspector and the sidebar. So I like animation, I just use it where appropriate. Right. So in this case, move all that around. So now I need to drop the image down, and I think I need to do that in the view model. Because I could have a cached cropped image. Because I'm going to need to use a cropped image for both the view mode and the hotspot mode. But not for... so yeah, what I'm going to need is not a cached cropped image. I'm going to need, like, specifically cropped image. I'm going to want private func generate. Let's shift this up here. I'm going to stick this in a separate section. Image. So we stick this down here. We're going to regenerate the cropped image if the crop rect changes. We're going to regenerate the cropped image if the image changes. What we're going to do is get an image. Well, guard let image equals self.image. Else self.cropped image equals nil. So we'll clear it out if the image is nil. So I'm going to create a new image of size. And size is going to be the self.rect. Actually, want to do guard. Now we'll do this for now. We'll do the good path, and then we'll come back and do handling all of the more problematic paths, like what if the size is 0, or what if the size is bigger than the image size. But image.lockFocus, I think we do want it flipped because we're doing it from the top left. Image.unlockFocus, and then what we're going to do, image dot want to rename this to cropped image. Do image.draw in cgrect origin 0 self.croprect.size from self.croprect operation source over 1. And then we should be able to do self.cropped image equals cropped image. Oh, don't want to build and run yet because we're not actually using this. What we want to then do is in the view mode, we want to actually update our bindings. Rather than going for the image, we're going to go for the cropped image. So once this is done, we then want to self-generate cropped. So let's see if this now works. Okay. We don't want it flipped. Oh, Okay, so we do want it flipped, but I believe there is in from fraction request. I respect flipped. That's what we need. True. Hint. Oh, it's still. The crop rect is going from the top left. It's doing the correct thing, just in the wrong place. So it's getting it, rather than going from there, it's going from there. Respectful. That's doing that. And if I do true, is that going to build the correct thing upside down, or is it going to draw the wrong? No, that's drawing the wrong thing upside down. Okay. Looks like I'm going to have to do helper function. So flipped effect. Flipped rect self. And flipping it round. We're going from the 0 point in the bottom. In fact, let's bring up Coppice. So this is 0, 0. Let's say this is 100, 100. What we actually want that to be is like 100, let's say 400. So then we want to make that equal to the origin plus the height, which gets us to there, and then we want the overall height minus that, which should give us the point from the bottom. So it's the overall height minus that and that. Yeah. The thing is, I work on everything, especially in scroll views, everything from the top left. But the problem is that I can't seem to find a way to cause NS image to invert. So you can get it to respect the fact that it has flipped the coordinate system. So you can draw an image to respect that the view is flipped, but you can't say draw this rectangle from an image. By the way, the origin is in the top left, not the bottom left. So that is the problem that I'm facing. So that's why I'm basically writing a method that I can just say the rect is 0, 0 image size. Here's another rect. Flip the coordinates of that rect within the greater rect and give me that. So I could do this as a one-line thing. But what that means is flip rect.origin.y equals rect.height minus flipped rect.origin.y minus flipped rect. Actually, flipped rect.max y. Return flipped rect. So if I do crop rect and I do it flipped in CG rect origin.0 image.size, this should hopefully work now. Because I could just swap everything around to make it flip, but the thing is that then makes all the crop view more awkward to deal with. I'll have to redo stuff there, and also when I bring all this to iOS, it makes it awkward. So it's easier to work from the top left in AppKit in this case. It's easier to work in the top left when I bring all this to iOS, so I'd rather have the data put in that thing in iOS. Well, that's basically what I have done here. So I have a flipped where, because this is my long list of core graphics things, so I've got like adding and subtracting and scaling stuff down, rounding things, and so on. So I've just created this, and that is now working correctly. So if I go and let's make this very precise, just over here, and then switch back. And what's cool, oh no, that is not actually, so I know what is going wrong. No, the issue wasn't that images were drawing upside down. If I remove the flip from here and I build and run again. So this should look fine now. So that looks fine. But what if I do, if I take this and move this up so it's just doing the top half of this, the origin is up here in the top left. So the crop rect, the origin of the crop rect is here, and the size is here. But when I switch back to here, it's drawing the bottom half. And no amount of setting the drawing to flipped or setting respect flipped to true seems to make the this from property let me say that the origin is in the top left of the bottom rather than the bottom left. NS image draw seems to always go from the bottom left rather than the top left. So the reason I added this flipped thing in is that I want to keep the crop rect in the top left because I'm pretty sure UI image works from the top left. The actual crop view that I'm using works in the top left, and when I do the crop view again on iOS, that will work from the top left. So it's literally, this is the one place I can't get it to work from the top left. So I just had a thing that just flips it around for me, and it works because I have this here I mean, you could use NSFI transform, but it's easier just to literally have this 3-line function that just adds a line here. Well, I was doing it where respect flipped was true and lock focus was true, but that didn't really do it, so yeah. Like I say, it's easier to flip it for this specific thing because it's the only place it needs to be flipped, whereas on iOS it won't need to be flipped at all. So I'd rather store the data in like a top left origin format because it just makes everything so much easier. I mean, anytime I do a scroll view, I always flip it to the top left because scroll views in particular are orders of magnitude easier when the coordinates are in the top left than the bottom left. That's why I have specifically a class called flipped clip view, which only exists to flip NS clip view. Well, I mean, you can name it something more obvious, but I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, the code in here, actually the code in here may end up being made cross-platform. To do iOS, don't flip the image. So I'll do all that. So it's just a helpful reminder there. But that's flipped. The one thing I do need to do, I am going to have to observe the image content. So I'm going to want to add a subscriber for image image. Let's add a section here. Arc properties. Do subscribers dot image so self.subscribers.image equals image content dot publisher for image dot think let's do a really need to create a sync on main. Sync on patch dot main dot generate crop. Actually needs to be a weak self there. Don't want to think out there. That should hopefully be okay because that lasts for the lifetime. So now when we undo, it should hopefully update. I say that. Why is that complaining now? Cannot find weak in scope. Not going to work better? Playing about that. Oh, in. Always forget the in. There we go. The reason I'm doing the receive on dispatch-queue.main is because, as annoying as the design decision to have the origin in the bottom left in AppKit was, it is not the worst design decision ever made in anything. The worst design decision ever made in anything was combined at publish, like all the publishing stuff combined. And in fact, it may not affect KVO, but definitely for at published, it fires on will set, not did set, which means that if you get something, you'll get a value here, which is the new value. But if you try to access the property you have observed, it is containing the old value. Which means that if you want to do something like this, where you are calling a function that is getting the image, if this was just using an app published, and I didn't have the receive on main to have it happen at the end of the run loop, and I just had a sync, this would run with the old value. And from what I understand, the reason Combine uses will set is entirely to make Apple's life easier implementing certain things around SwiftUI. Unfortunately, it makes everyone who uses Combine and people who use SwiftUI's life harder, because 99.999% of the time, people who actually use these APIs want it to happen on did set. But it makes life, Apple just happens to live in that 0.0001% where having it on will set makes it a bit easier. And it's about the only time I'm truly aware of where Apple has made a terrible design decision on an API purely to make their life easier. When normally Apple goes to extreme lengths to hide that stuff away. At least they have with Cocoa. With Cocoa, they've gone to extreme lengths to hide the complexity and difficulty and make it easier for the rest of us. With Swift, it seems they've just gone, YOLO, we'll let everyone else deal with it and make our life easier. But yeah, rant over. Let's see if this works. Okay, so if I move this to here, then move this to here, and then resize this, I go back to here and do I actually build and run. Okay, so that is firing. And then if I shift that to there. Oh, I know why. I need to do it the same again. The crop rect. Because it depends on both the image and the crop rect. Now this would be a lot easier if I just made this a generated thing, where it generates that every time. Because then I could just use KVO, and for the cropped image, just say that it depends on image and crop rect, which would then go in here and make sure it depends on the other properties and so on. Problem there is that I don't want to regenerate this every time someone calls cropped image, because that could potentially get expensive. So I'd rather have this little bit of nonsense to deal with. But now it should hopefully work, and then we should be good for the day, hopefully. So try again. Drag this down here. Drag this over here. Resize. Then we go here. Undo, undo, undo. Redo, redo, redo. Voila! We have cropping of an image in a completely non-destructive way with full undo redo. Of course, the slight problem is we have many problems to solve over here. For example, if I go in here, I can now scroll around and find that thing, but this is not very useful. And then if I resize this, well, great. Now I can shift this over to here and shift this to here and then go back to view. And oh, that's really big. Actually, I wanted that to... So yeah, there's a lot of design work to go around here, and this is the next thing that we're going to do. Oh yeah, the undo redo works, and it works along with changing the page size and everything. What I'm going to do is disable these controls, because at the moment this is not in edit mode and this is not in edit mode. To start editing this, you have to double click and then you're in edit mode and you can start changing things. So you can, I mean, technically I should probably disable all these controls here, thinking about it, because they don't make any sense until you, in fact probably they shouldn't even be visible until you actually go in like this. So I should probably do the same here, where this isn't visible until you actually go in and start editing, and at that point when you click on this, what I want to do is have this basically scale up, and either scale up to the image size so that it's got enough space, or if your window isn't big enough, it will scale to, like, basically would scale to be like this size. If you assume like this is an image that is too big, it would scale to this size. You would do it all, make your edit, and then it would scale down, and it would basically scale down to either, well, to whatever crop size you have. So it would basically go back to size fit content. Of course, the problem is, like, size fit content doesn't take into account the crop rect, so there's lots of things to do there. So actually, before we go, let's jot all these down. So this works. We'll leave the accessibility there. We'll come back to that. But to do, make size to fit content, respect crop rect. To make dropping onto canvas, respect crop rect. That may be fixed by the above. To disable text and image inspectors when page is not being edited, because they make no sense them existing if you cannot actually use them. And then to do resize image page when editing crop mode, to resize image page when exiting crop mode if crop rect changed. So those are all our to-dos that we need to do on the canvas view to get all this working. So hopefully once all that is done, then we just need to do accessibility, and then cropping is done. And then what we can do is move on to hotspots, which will work in a sort of similar way, but it's going to be a lot easier because the image will be in crop mode when that happens. But yeah, we will see how things pan out there with crop mode on Friday, because I will be streaming again this Friday at 2 PM. If you haven't already followed, then please do give me a follow on Twitch. You will get notified whenever I go live, so that you can follow along with me as I develop Coppice. It also helps get me closer towards affiliate status. I just need, I believe, 8 more followers and I should be eligible for affiliate status, which allows me to get additional things on the stream, such as emotes and channel points and various things that allow me to start making the stream even better for everyone watching. So I want to thank you all for watching, for all chatting, and I will see you all again on Friday. Have a good week.